really beautiful conversation about grief and how he stepped up in her life after Paul Walker died. And like, I just walked away from that being like, that was a really meaningful kind of moment in the ridiculousness of Hollywood. And that was really special too.
Because you have this production company, like what do you see the trends what do you think the trends in reality TV are now?
I think people right now, I think networks are looking for really big, huge ensemble cast shows that are super colorful. We've gone out with a couple shows that are like really niche, like if you think like Tiger King or something that like is this, and it doesn't seem like people are really into that. Like we want to follow one person that has this weird life. It's very much like the Housewives and the big, I mean, obviously the Housewives, but it's like the big ensemble cast selling Sunset, Bling Empire, like these big shows with multiple people and like a never ending web is something that's really big. And then I think you're going to see a lot more game shows just with the writer's strike happening right now in Hollywood. We went to this thing called MIPCOM, which is in Cannes, and we took Superfan to sell it around the world as a format. So you know how they have like The Voice Australia, The Voice Germany. So we took our format out, and people were really excited because it's very rare to get a new game show. And game shows can run forever. And so I think if you remember the last writer's strike, there was like a lot of Celebrity Apprentice and that type of like Survivor-ish show. Yeah. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. But yeah, I don't know. I wish that I knew exactly what they wanted because I would make it. But it's actually very hard. The ratio of like shows you sell to shows you pitch is exhausting.
It's so hard to get a reality show on
the air.
It
crazy.
Just really is.
And then when they get on the air, it's so hard to have them work. Like, I love Brad Goreski and Todrick Hall, and they just had that show on MTV, and I don't think it worked. But it's like, these are all great people who have great stories and are amazing on television. So it's just getting it on TV and then having it be magical is next level.
That's what I always tell someone. I'm like, if I got a show or what, I would be excited in the middle of season 2 when we were still hot.
Yeah.
It did not work. The Real Friends of WeHo. I like know all those guys too. It just didn't work.
Go, right? Yeah. And when our podcast Lady Gang had our show on E, we got like a season and a half essentially before they canceled us. And it was one of those things where like everything was lined up. Like we had a great budget, we had a hit podcast, we had amazing producers, we had the sickest network,
a famous actress.
Like we had it was all perfect.
Famous red carpet host.
Yeah, it just like for some reason, I mean, it's actually become like quite internet famous on TikTok now, but for some reason at the time, it just wasn't what people wanted at 11 p.m. on Sunday nights. They wanted something else. And so you can have the best intentions and actually get a really great show made that you're proud of. And it just doesn't, like I was like, where are the girls? Like, where are the listeners of the podcast? Because our podcast is incredible. And people were just like, I don't know if it was the time slot or they just didn't like the format of the show. But you can even have a hit thing and still bomb.
Right. Like it's based on a hit podcast.
Right. So you would be like, oh, this is a shoe-in.
Right. And we have E backing us.
Yeah.
But the Busy Phillips show also didn't work, and that was great.
And that was our lead-in, right? So it was like, that was hard too.
And then we have the Kardashians, the house that E built. And it's like, did you, as we wrap up, and then we'll two more questions, like did you have a lot of run-ins with the Kardashians during your time at E? And I mean, you're back at E now. I mean, I love a good Kardashian, so there's no shade in this question.
Yeah, I love them all. I have a list in order of the order in which I love them.
Me too.
I think Kim Kardashian gets a lot of crap, and I have to tell you that I've never met a celebrity that's more on time, more prepared, more professional. Like when you're interviewing Kim at 10 a.m., at 9:55, she walks into the room with the glam team. They're putting the gloss on, they're brushing the hair, she's ready to go, she knows where she's standing, and she's done. Like there's no waiting, there's no fuss, there's no I need a water, there's no she is so professional, so wonderful, gives you everything you need, and is sweet as pie. So I have no shade for them.
I have heard from so many people like yourself. Every single person says the exact same thing about specifically Kim, but all the Kardashians, that they work, they're professional. And then someone else told me, like, Kim understands it so that you get your soundbite. You know, if you're trying to get the soundbite within like
2 minutes.
With every interview she does, she knows what you need. And like, we can now move on because this is really what you wanted for your headline. No shade. You got it. I got it. Love you. See you soon.
100%. They're really, really smart and savvy and lovely. I mean, I would like to get invited to Kris Jenner's Christmas Eve party,
Yes.
but like maybe eventually, you know.
Who is your favorite Kardashian? I have them all ranked too.
Oh, Kim's my number one. Who's your number one?
Chloe Money, but Lord Disick.
Yeah.
I love my Lord Disick.
I know. Do you think there's a world in which Chloe and Scott end up together?
Oh, wow.
I just have always felt like, I know they're really, really good friends, and that might be too weird, but like I just feel like they could be great together.
They would be, I mean, I have never thought of this. I've thought of everything regarding the Kardashians. That's really, I think they would be absolutely great together, like best friend. You know, it didn't work with Kanye and Kim. You danced, didn't you dance?
I danced for Kanye. Yeah, he was one of my first jobs in New York.
How was that?
I was.
And is Kanye okay these days?
You know, I don't know. I have a lot of compassion for Kim. Like sometimes late at night when I'm spiraling, I write a letter to Kim Kardashian in my head about what it's like, and I believe that Kanye has spoken or someone has confirmed that he does suffer from bipolar, and my brother's bipolar. And so like I've written her letters in my head that I've never sent about what it's like to love someone with bipolar and how difficult and heartbreaking that is. So I feel exactly how I feel about Kanye, the way that I feel about my own brother, which is like I'm cautiously optimistic, but know kind of where this story ends eventually. And I feel really horrible for her that she's raising her children in this situation, because it's like, I just remember when my brother, at times when he's been really sick, it's like you almost wish, and this is such a terrible thing to say, but like you almost wish that they had a bad accident, like lost a leg or had cancer, that they could like treat with chemo, because you would have a treatment plan that you know is going to work or not going to work.
Right.
With mental illness, it's just like you just keep trying things and it's always changing. So it's like what medication he may be, or what he was doing in his life when they got married and he seemed like he was in a really good place. A year later, taking the exact same thing or doing the exact same thing, your brain has melted in a million different ways and doesn't work anymore. And it's so frustrating and hard. So I have a lot of compassion, and I just, I feel for her. I think that's why she's my favorite.
Yeah, and she had, and I could do, then we'll wrap up. I could do a whole podcast just on mental health, but she had started speaking out and just saying, you know, everything you just said. Like,
it's
you
really
know,
hard.
she tries not to for the kids, but she's like, it's really hard. Like, no one seems to understand. Like, it's truly hard behind, which I mean, understands with anyone that has that in their family or, you know.
And by the way, it's passed down generationally. So she may be looking at, you know, her life in the future with these kids, like, how are they going to grow up to be? You know, they're in the spotlight, and then also they're, you know, predisposition to have some sort of, struggle in some way, in that way. So I don't want to say that they have anything with, I don't know these children, but you know, it's just one of those hard things. Like when I thought about having kids, I was like, ooh, you know, like I know this sort of seed of this is in me, and I don't know that I want to exist with pushing it forward, you know? Like I think it can just end with me.
That makes a lot of sense.
Dark.
Well, listen,
back to Housewives.
Listen, you are going to be working really hard because, I mean,